Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on my webinar today. We're going to talk about what not to do with your branding. What are the top 3 mistakes that you're probably making with your branding and what to do about it? And then I'm going to give you some time for some Q&A. So if you have any questions at any time, you can hit I believe there's a chat box to put in some questions or a Q&A box. I'm going to pop over here and make sure I'll keep my eye on that. So we'll get started. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Let me just get started here. All right. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what not to do with your branding. We're going to talk about first, what is a brand? Because of course, without knowing what branding is, you can't really know what you could be missing or what you could be doing wrong with it. So we're going to talk about what a brand is. We'll go into what not to do with your brand and how to fix it. What do you need to do? What should you really pay attention to and focus your time on with your branding? Because there is always so much to do with your business. So why is branding important, and what can you do about it, and how to make the most of your time? And then we'll have some time for some Q&A shortly after that. So I've spoken of this many times. If you took my BYOB branding course either in August or October, you'll have seen this slide before. A logo is a suggestion or an impression or a clue. It is not your brand. I get a lot of clients that come to me saying, I don't need a brand, or I already have a brand, I have a logo. And they assume that having a logo is the essence of your brand, and that's all that you really need for your brand is to have a logo. But truly, a logo is just an impression. It's like either a text mark or I guess a word mark is the right way to say it, or a graphic that helps someone identify your business, but it is not your brand. What the logo does is it triggers a memory of their experience with your brand, whether that's something they've heard about your brand, something they've seen from you or from someone else about your brand. And so a logo just triggers that memory. A logo is not the brand itself. And like I said, it's easily recognizable, and it's the simplest form of your business name. It's the simplest form. It's the most, I guess, the most basic aspect of your brand. You do need a logo in a brand, but a logo is not your entire brand. The brand is everything. The logo is just one piece, whereas the brand is truly, it's everything. It's everything you put out there. It's your emails to people. It's your graphics that you put out. It's your website. It's your Facebook conversations. It's how you act in groups, or whether or not you add people to groups without their permission, or do you build authentic relationships. All of that is part of your brand. It goes into everything, including pricing, your target audience, your messaging. Branding is really, I think, a lot more than what people assume. I think branding is so much deeper than just colors and fonts and a pretty logo. There's so much more to it than that. A brand is everything that you put out there. It's a feeling or a memory that someone's had with your company. It is your reputation, your customer service, your promise, the pricing that you go with, the feeling, the vibe that you give off. It's your products, it's your services, it's the way you put them together and package them, how you offer them, how you deliver them, do you follow up with clients? All of this, every single thing is your branding. And it's much, I think it's bigger than everyone thinks it is. It really is kind of the essence of your business. If you don't have a strong brand, you really don't have a good business. It's like, how do people think of your company? What is that feeling or vibe do they get from it? Do they get that Walmart vibe, or a higher end Tiffany's vibe, for example? Do they get great customer service, or is that lacking because it's not on the top of your list? So it's really everything. And of course, you can't do everything. You're only one person. This is why you have a team of people to help you, because branding is so important and it is so huge, you really can't do it all yourself. You need people to help you work on, your social media, maybe your email replies, your graphic design, all of this. Different people can do different things, and all of it put together is your brand. I mentioned personality and vibe and how you can think of your brand as a person. Again, if you've taken my BYOB course before, you've seen this content. Branding as a person. So is your brand going to be quiet? Is your brand really in your face and outgoing? Is it confident and bold? Does it inspire you to act? Is it more laid back and relaxed? What is the feeling that people get from your brand? And similarly, with that feeling comes the voice of your brand, and ideally they're the same feeling. So the same type of style that you speak with in emails, that's the same vibe that you're going to give off in other aspects of your brand, such as your customer service or your website. All of it relates together, and you want that brand messaging and voice to be cohesive. And like you see here on the slide, you might not even know it yet, but your brand has a voice. Whether or not it's consciously thought about or worked on, or if you hire a copywriter, you have a voice. Your brand already has a voice. The key is to identify how that voice is coming across. What is that voice saying? What is the messaging that you're giving out? And tweak it if it's not really where you want it to be. All right, I'm going to pop back over to the Q&A really quick, just to make sure I don't miss any questions. So if you've got any questions or have any thoughts, let me know. I believe there's a Q&A box, and if there's not, no, I believe there is. There's a say something under that video. You can click play. Let me know if there's any questions. All right, I'm going to pop back over to my slides. All right, so mistake number 1. I'm going to talk about this. There's not really, would I say there's a specific order? It's hard to say. I'm going to go kind of least, or there is an order of importance, I suppose, in regards to your branding and how you put your focus into it. But really, like I said, your branding is so huge and it's such an essential part of your business that it is all relatively equal in importance. And so there's not really an order to these mistakes. So the first one I'm going to talk about, though, is your target audience and messaging. Are you clear on who your target audience is? Who is your ideal client? Is your ideal client the girl next door, really, maybe she's young and goes to school and she's really trying to learn a bunch of things and grow her own world. Perhaps your ideal client is male and maybe they're an older businessman and they've been in business for a long time and they have lots of experience. There's different types of ideal clients. And just like you can think of your brand as a person and what qualities do they have, you can think of your ideal client as a person, an actual person. Is that person, like I said, young or old? Do they live in a city or in a suburb? Do they have children? Do they go to school? Do they work full time? What are their hopes and dreams? What are their struggles? What do they lack in regards to their daily life? Do they have, what are their strengths and weaknesses, I guess is how to say it. You really want to figure out who is your ideal client and who is that target, because it is going to shape your products, your services, your delivery, and your messaging. And what I mean by messaging is kind of like what I spoke about a minute ago about you're going to have a voice, and you're going to use that voice in your email sequences, in your website, in your Facebook posts, and you want to make sure that the messaging across all of those platforms is the same. You want to make sure the messaging is clear, that it's consistent, and that it, even has a message. Really, you don't want it to be full of generalities and confusing aspects. You want it to have a clear goal. What is the message you're trying to get across? I'm writing a book right now, and I hope to have it published in September or so, early in the fall. And the messaging that I want to get across with that book, my book coach Rocky was asking me, what is the one thing that I want to get across in my message? And my message, which will be kind of ingrained in every single chapter of that book, is that you can live the life you love. It doesn't matter what you do as a job, or if you're a mother or an entrepreneur or both or whatever, you can live the life you love. And it's all about the choices you make and how you spend your time and what you're focusing on, and not to settle. I really think that in every aspect, whether it's in working with other entrepreneurs or if it's personal stuff, don't settle. Don't think that, oh, this is just how it is, I guess, and this is just how it's going to be because this is how it always has been. Don't settle. If you don't like your life, change it. If you don't like your website, change it. If you don't like how you're coming across on Facebook, change it. If you don't like it, change it. So that's the messaging I want to have in my book. And similarly, I try to put that messaging out there with my brand, where you want your best self to be your best self, your most authentic self to be present online. You want to have your website, for example, be that space that you can invite people to, somewhere that feels personal and relatable, authentic, and welcoming. And maybe your personal vibe is bold and you want to get your clients to feel like they are ready to work and ready to go at it. And that's perfect. Just make sure that that messaging is clear across all the platforms, across Facebook and your website and your copywriting and everything. So that's mistake number one, is you're not clear on your target audience and your messaging. So what can you do to fix it? Like I said, think about your target audience as an actual person. Write it down. Write down all those qualities that they have. Write down their strengths and weaknesses. Where do they excel and where do they struggle? And then go back to that when you are struggling with your messaging or your services. You can always go back to this space where you have your target audience really well defined, because when you have that really well defined, you're able to clearly figure out what do they need, how can I help them, and what do they need to hear so that I can reach them as a person. And keep your messaging clear. How to do that. I recommend copywriters. I am a huge proponent of outsourcing the things that you do not love to do. So if you love writing, great. I don't love writing, so I have copywriters that write for me, and I speak with them and they take my message and they put it into copy that really showcases what I'm trying to say. And so, while I don't feel like I can get my message across necessarily all the time by myself, that's okay. And I hire someone to help me with that. If you want to do it yourself and get your messaging clear, just make sure that you have that one true sentence or one goal. What is the one thing that you want everyone that you work with to know? What is the one thing that you want to do with everyone that you work with? Get that message clear and remind yourself of it. Write it down. Make sure that you really remember what it is that you want to get across. The second mistake we're going to talk about is that you don't consider branding to be everything that it is. If you only consider branding to be some colors and fonts and that's it, well, that's a mistake. Branding is so much more. And I talked about this at the beginning of the webinar, that branding is everything that you put out there, everything. It's even the clothes you wear. It's the office space behind you when you're on a webinar, for example. It's the way you interact with people on Facebook groups. It's the words that you use in your emails, even in private messaging, which is inherently private. Is if you're talking with a client or a coworker or someone like a fellow entrepreneur, that is still your brand. The way that they feel about you when you're talking to them and the things that they're hearing from you, all of that is your brand. You are portraying some aspect of your brand no matter what you do. And you really need to remember that. Again, I said this many times already in the last 20 minutes. Your brand is everything. It's your pricing, it's your voice, it's your messaging. It is everything. So don't think that it is just some nice colors and fonts. How can you fix the mistake? How can you remind yourself that branding is everything? Don't be too quick to reply. If you're on Facebook or you're on email, don't reply immediately. Take a minute and think about it. How do you want to come across? Of course, if you know me, you know that I promote authentic branding, being yourself, speaking like you would to anybody, whether that's swearing or not. Be yourself, but don't necessarily just write a reply, in the heat of the moment. Think of your branding and think of, if I reply in this way, is that going to be a good example of the message I'm trying to portray? What is the message I'm trying to portray? And is the way that I'm handling this situation or this client, or is the way that I'm putting out this product or service, is that going to relate to the branding message that I've decided I want to have? Think about it for a moment. Just take a step back, and before you do anything, think about it. And of course, this is going to take some time. You're not going to remember immediately every day just to stop and think about what you're doing with your brand. But just try to keep in mind that it is more than you think it is. It is really important that you have a clear message, a clear audience, and clear, it's kind of like your message. You want to have just a clear guideline of how you want to be portrayed. What do you want someone to think about you? If someone says to me, or if someone was asking someone else, what do you think of Alyssa? The Alyssa J. Gavinsky brand. What do you think of it? When you hear Alyssa J. Gavinsky or you see her photo online, what are your thoughts? And I want that person to say, I think that she's confident, I think that she's successful, but authentic and approachable. I feel like she really knows her stuff and she's really great to work with. So that's the kind of message that I want people to come across to get, and that feeling that I want them to get when they hear my name or see my photo. And I try to keep that in my mind whenever I work with someone. And again, like I said, be authentically me, but still keep in mind that everything I do is part of my brand. The third mistake I'm going to talk about, and this is kind of the biggest one, biggest in that it is literally the largest. Consistency it's in every aspect. It's consistency in your colors, in your fonts, in the way that you write, in your voice. It's consistency in your pricing structure. It's consistency in your customer service and treating every client well, but also the same, having that consistency. It's about posting regularly on email and Facebook, being consistent with your response times, being consistent with your, like I said earlier, your message that you're trying to get out. It's consistency is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, because they might think that that they can use every color of the rainbow or different fonts. As long as it looks good in that one image, then it's fine. But really, no, if it's not consistent with your brand, and if I can't recognize that brand, between a Facebook ad versus their website versus their email, if it's not consistent and it's not recognizable, you're not going to have a brand. People are not going to work with you because they won't know who you are, because you're putting out, all these different colors and all these different messages, because you're not really sure. You're either not sure what you want to do or what you want to put out there, or you're not sure what you like, or you're trying to please everyone. And I say this a lot. If you're trying to please everyone, you will end up pleasing no one. If you're trying to work with everybody, you're not going to work with anybody, because no one will, either they'll not feel that you're really an expert at the thing that you're claiming to be an expert at, but also that maybe you don't really know what you're doing. So how could you help me do what I'm doing? If you're lost, you can't possibly help me do what I'm doing, because I'll be lost as well. So how do you fix the problem with consistency? When you either do it yourself or work with a designer, and you get those colors down, and you know the kind of tone and vibe and message you want to put out, and you have the font palette and everything, use it. Go back to it. Remind yourself, what's the message I want to put out there? Remind yourself, here's my color palette and the color codes. Remind yourself, what are the fonts that I want to use? What are the type of imaging and the photography that I have that I really want to keep consistent? It's about doing things consistently so that people can recognize you. Maybe it's emailing once a week instead of once whenever you feel like it to your email list. Maybe it's posting 3 to 5 times a day in your Facebook group instead of, 4 messages or 4 posts at midnight. You want to be consistent so that people can see you and recognize you. If they don't know who you are, they're not going to work with you. People want to know, like, and trust you before they even work with you. And if they don't know who you are and they can't trust you because you don't really know who you are yourself, then they're not going to work with you, and it's going to cost you some business. So be consistent. So just to go over those 3, number 1, make sure you know who your target audience is. Be clear on your ideal client and your messaging. Number 2, branding is everything. It's your pricing. It's the experience that the client has. It is the customer service that you provide. It's your emails. It's your personal messaging. It's your clothing. It's your office. It is everything that you put out there. And mistake number 3 is being consistent. Don't, devalue consistency just because it's easier to do it one way or you think you should do it another way. Pick one thing and do it. Do it well. And I'm going to give you a bonus mistake. Don't undervalue branding. Don't undervalue the value of branding. If you do it yourself or hire out to like Fiverr or Odesk where it's really cheap, you're going to get what you pay for. And I don't say this because I'm a graphic designer and I want you to hire me. I'm not saying that at all. I just want you to know that branding is important and you really need to invest in it. And maybe it's not the right time to invest in a big designer right now. But if you are going to invest, make sure you look into different options and keep in mind that you get what you pay for. I find a lot of people on Facebook that I've seen, they'll come back from Fiverr or even a free logo somewhere and say, oh, this logo is crap. I can't believe I even paid $5 for this. Or they're expecting so much more than a $5 logo is going to give them. You really want to work with someone that's experienced. And not that doing it yourself is a bad thing. I definitely promote learning and doing it yourself and making sure that you understand why things are done a certain way and why they look a certain way. And I even have my branding course that's a do-it-yourself course. And I'll be adding in a web design course that's also a do-it-yourself course. So I do appreciate do-it-yourself projects. But sometimes, especially in branding, when it is so essential, work with a coach about your target client. Work with a copywriter about your messaging. And work with a branding designer about your logo and your color palette and how you all want to relate all of that together. And maybe it's in pieces. It might not be all at once, and that's okay. But don't undervalue the value of branding. Branding is so much bigger than many people think it is. And I've done this slide before. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Be authentically you. Many people have put this statement out there, and I totally agree with it. Overall, it's your own vibe that attracts your tribe. Your ideal client is likely going to be very similar to yourself and the qualities that you have in your own self. And that's great. So be authentically you. Don't try to be somebody that you're not because you think, oh, I have to be this type of person to attract this type of client. That's not going to work. And if it does work for a while, it's not going to last. Be yourself. It's easier to be you than to be anybody else. All right, I'm going to open it up to Q&A and see if we have any questions. I'm not sure if let me just pop open the Q&A box. I don't see any questions here, and that's totally fine. You guys have my email, and if you don't have my email address, let me know. It's alyssajgavinsky@gmail.com. I will post that email address in the comment box. Feel free to ask me questions or hit me up on Facebook. I love to work with entrepreneurs who are trying to build their business and develop the brand and the messaging that they want to get out there and do it in their visual presence. I hope you guys enjoyed this webinar, and if you have any questions, like I said, we'll chat on Facebook. Okay, have a great day, guys. Bye.